Thanks, Tyson. Okay, call to order, Peter Eckel, Budget Advisory Committee.
Sean Lewis, City Manager.
Tyson Thornburg, Budget and Financial Analyst.
Joe Ingles, Griffin Finance. Andrew Forlines, new alternate member.
Rita Russell, City Council.
David Mondel, Budget Advisory Committee.
Stephen Ward, Council Liaison.
Those online, please.
Jay Knight, Budget Advisory Committee.
And James Horan, Budget Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Okay, approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the, let's see, June 24th meeting minutes for the committee?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Nevin. Any second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those to approve?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, new business. Andrew, Peter, nice to have you. Welcome to our monthly meeting, and we're happy to have you. So this is Andrew Forlines. He will be a new alternate member, council appointed, I will say. Andrew, if you want to just say something about yourself and why you want to be here, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Andrew Forlines, local resident. Been in the Bellevue Park neighborhood for 5 years now. Both my kids are in the school system here. Just really happy to learn more about how the city functions, help to, contribute however I can. My wife and I are really engaged with the community, so we're just trying to make it the best place we can have for our kids.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for being here and supporting the city. Okay, another menu on our new business, the annual election of officers. Tyson, I'll look at you if I need some help here. So we need to elect or re-elect chair and vice chair. The term limits, I believe, are 2 consecutive terms for both positions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any nominations from the group? And I'll nominate James, and I'll nominate Nevin, and I'll nominate Jay. And Laura too, although she's not here, so.
Peter, I do want to say I'm happy to continue serving in the vice chair role, but I do want to acknowledge that my travel schedule is fairly robust. I'm once again in New Mexico here this evening, so I will be happy to stand aside if there's another member who is more physically accessible on a regular basis.
Fair enough. Thanks, James. Okay, so what nominations do we have for chair? Actually, let's do vice chair. What nominations do we have for vice chair? I'll nominate Nevin. And I'll nominate Jay as well.
And the nominees do need to accept their nomination.
Do you accept your nomination?
I certainly can. Really, I'm happy to nominate whomever is interested and thinks that they have the capacity to fill those roles.
Well, I'll ask for a nomination for either post. I'm happy to serve another year as is, or as vice chair, or not at all.
Sure. Well, I'd happily nominate you as vice chair if we're doing vice chair.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Jay, do you accept the nomination for, let's just say, both posts?
Sure.
And James, we heard your comment. I know you have a busy travel schedule. All right, well, let's elect, should we elect a chair or vice chair first?
I would recommend going in order and doing chair.
Okay.
But if we could just clarify our chair nominations and their acceptance, just for my records.
Okay, I'll nominate Jay and Nevin.
Do we need to re-nominate Pete?
If we could just clarify the list and then whether or not the person is nominated. So I've heard a nomination for Jay.
I will nominate Pete for chair.
I'd be willing to do it. One more year.
And then Jay, did you accept your nomination for chair?
I'll accept for vice chair.
Okay. And then Nevin, do you accept your nomination for chair?
I will accept my nomination and just for the sake of inclusion, I would like to go ahead and nominate Laura for chair as well.
And I appreciate the nomination, but unfortunately she is not here to accept it.
Okay.
We're good in the record.
Yep.
Okay, so who's gonna be the chair? I guess we have 4 people voting. I don't know if I can vote for myself on it.
You are allowed to vote as a voting
Okay.
member for the committee. So we have
Are we
Nevin.
going to end up doing like ranked choice voting or something? I'm getting a little confused at this point with this crazy display of democracy we've got and humility.
If I could ask for a moment, just to speak candidly and see who has time and like legitimately, like, is there anybody that has legitimate interest in this? James, I appreciate you speaking clearly about, you know, your travel requirements. Jay, is one of these positions something you're interested in? Peter, it sounds like you might be interested in one of these positions. Do you have a preference?
I mean, I was vice chair a year ago. I'm happy to do another year as chair, if that's what you all decide.
Do you think you have the capacity?
I have the capacity to do one more year.
Yeah, I have the capacity. I want to continue to serve the community, and if we need a vice chair, then I'm willing to stand up and take a little bit more responsibility and help the chair with organization and our responsibilities.
Great. Thank you, Jay. Likewise, I have the capacity. I'm not gunning for either of these roles, but I do want to make sure that we're staying on top of stuff and just want to make sure that we're following through on everything that we need to be. But so I appreciate folks letting me jump in here just to kind of clarify the interest, given the gratuitous nominations.
So for chair, we have Peter and Nevin who are nominated. One way we can do this is we can say one name and then have everyone vote on that name, and then the next name and have everyone vote. Traditionally, we usually only have one nomination and then people vote yay or nay on them. So I will defer to the committee.
I think that process sounds fine to me.
So then you'd say all in favor of the first candidate, all in favor of the second candidate. We'll tally votes.
All right, so for chair, all in favor of Peter being chair for his second and final term, say aye.
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 Okay, I'll say aye. I guess I can vote for myself.
It's unanimous.
Okay. And the 2 candidates we have for vice chair are Jay and Nevin, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All those in favor of Jay being vice chair, say aye.
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 I'll vote for myself. Aye.
Okay. Great. Okay, so I think we'll know how next year's vote will go. So thank you, Jay and Nevin, for being willing to do that. And thank you, James, for letting us know about your upcoming commitments. You've been a great vice chair, so we appreciate it. Okay, moving on. The annual report. I do have a couple things I want to do in connection with this today, assuming that the group agrees. One, I would like Steve, and I'll preface it and we'll get to this, but you know, City Council had asked about a reserve policy. I'll call it review. It was the one thing that I don't feel like we really got to this year, but we'll get to it. And so that would be today. and the next 2 weeks as we write a draft and finalize a report for what day are we meeting with City Council?
It is August 4th.
August the 4th.
We will need that finalized later this week.
Okay, what day?
Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
Friday.
We know how the Friday deadlines go with this group. Okay.
If you would like to put the document on the screen, you're able to do so using this little dongle.
This one here?
Yes.
And how do I do that? Plug it
Plug
in?
that into your computer,
All right, let's try this out here.
and then it'll think for a little bit, and it'll be flashing. And as soon as it's a solid white light, you'll just press the button.
Let's see here. Okay. And it says click share. Let's see here.
And you shouldn't have to click anything on your computer.
It says CrowdStrike. So my computer may not allow me to do this. Open folder. Let's just see what happens. It's not going to let me. I say that for Windows.
I usually ignore all the pop-ups that come with this thing.
And another option is you could join the Teams meeting and just put your computer volume on mute, and then also hear yourself on mute,
let's
and
try
then you can
that.
share from there.
Let's try that. I got it. Oh,
May I?
yes, please. Look at that. Okay, so we're gonna have to change this around. James, well, you're gonna still be on here, but
I believe it should reflect actually our committee makeup as it was.
as it is now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I don't think we did that last year,
Mhm.
I will say. Okay, moving on. So I'll let Steve provide his comments here in a few minutes. I think the report has been modestly modified, to say the least, but I know that James spent some time on the intro today, which was very nice. Thank you, James. I don't think we're gonna have to probably read this. I say that. I'll go ahead and read it. I may skip through some things. So I think the first update was BAC, recognized Bill and his service to the committee, and also Laura being transitioned to a regular voting member status. Bill served many years, which was great. And also we recognize that Andrew is a new alternate member, which we're very happy to have, because we've been shorthanded 1 or 2 people now since December.
One person.
1, okay. So we've been shorthanded, so we're happy to have you, Andrew. For the 4th year in a row, we've engaged in the capital improvement project planning process, which I think is important, and we want to talk about that today. My goal there is to have enough notes in this meeting that we can put together the paragraphs, or 2 or 3 that we're going to write. The BAC was pleased to once again play a role in the process this year in project planning. Due to the timing of City Council's consideration and approval of capital improvements projects preceding the issuance of this report, the contents of this report will not reference the committee's recommendations directly. I think, James, we might change that. We might actually reference some of the recommendations directly. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
There just wasn't a section in the report for me to draw from yet.
Got it.
So,
Okay. Okay, so we'll update that, and I think you're right. We should add a separate section, right? The process plan and then the recommendations. Do you agree with that?
Add a separate section for the process plan, what for?
Which I think is what we're initially gonna do, but James and I did have a discussion, and I think we should also include our top priorities as we looked at the CIP. What do you think?
Okay, like a subsection under the CIP section?
Subsection or separate section?
Okay, if we have a CIP section, I kind of feel like
Want to
it
include it in there?
might make sense just to put that in the existing CIP section,
Okay.
just so people can look at the headers, or if not, it should certainly be right next to that section.
Okay.
But
Okay, and we'll get to that here in a few minutes.
I was hesitant to add to the CIP section because I know that there certainly was some feedback that I had heard from the committee regarding that process, but I didn't feel like there was like much concrete that we landed on. You know, I think people expressed, you know, the process will tend to favor these types of projects, but not, I didn't really hear a whole lot of feedback, like we should do something about it or that's a problem. You know, I just mostly heard feedback that the structure of the form will tend to promote safety-oriented projects. And commentary along those lines. So I didn't know if there was an expectation from the group for us to include anything there, or if anybody had any strong feelings from that discussion a few weeks ago.
Tyson, would it be possible to pull up the memo that we attached to the prioritization list? I know I was doing some note taking during that meeting and I drafted that memo, and Nevin, I can't remember if I captured any of those process or if, as you said, it was a little bit amorphous.
Yes, give me just a second to find that.
Thanks,
Tyson.
James.
And good call, James.
I'll continue while he's doing that. So I also note the second year the BAC reviewed the audited expenditures presented by the Public Works and Inglewood Police Department in association with the sales and use tax measures approved by voters in 2022. So that's an important section. In the interest of providing continuity, I provided the reserve policies overview we looked at last year, although it was an overview. The Parks and Recs bond proposal, sales and use tax review, sales and use tax expenditure review, which I'll call it an audit this year, and traffic planning, and also IT network. This year's report retains focus on these areas below, which are sales and use tax audit, which I think we need to stick to that language, the reserve policy, and capital improvements project budget. We mention our appreciation for various city departments. And, oh, good, somebody started the sales and use tax audit. I don't know if we did this.
I just wrote this to, I had written it in a separate document so that there wasn't any potential issues with sunshine laws. But I wanted to wait to add it to make sure that someone else didn't have something. And when I saw today that it was still empty, I just threw in what I had.
Thank you.
Could you change your Peter?
Sure.
Probably like 125.
Sure.
There's a drop down
There.
there. Beauty.
Is that better?
Yes.
So I won't read this verbatim, but I think we should add notes to where we want to touch on various topics. Andrew, you're welcome to add what you think. The Budget Advisory Committee focused on building off of last year's process, utilizing concern and feedback from last year's sales and use tax process to design a formalized review process for the 2 voter-approved sales and use tax areas that we were told by City Council to oversee, called alternative policing and road and bridge maintenance initiatives. The suggested change laws surround consistency of formatting, ensuring that the information was presented clearly for voters, constituents. The review process considered additional data if any could or should be incorporated into the review process, and highlighted a reiteration of requests and expectations regarding the information that the BAC asked the police and road and bridge departments, called Public Works, to include each year. As a result, minor organizational formatting changes were made to both sales and use tax reporting and to the presentations from these departments. And I think we agree that we got to where we expected, right? To be able to rubber stamp and say, yes, this meant.
And that's a good call. We should leave road and bridge in where it says the areas, but change here, police and road and bridge to police and public works.
And I'll be going through all this too. We'll make some edits. I'm sure there'll be a lot here in the next few days.
And so Pete,
Sure.
will we be adding a recommendation section where we have stated that, based on presentation and information provided, that we feel that we can safely say that this is being done in accordance with the ballot measure?
Yes.
That might be a good way to start the second paragraph.
Yeah, I was thinking about adding it, but I saw that we weren't adding recommendations, or at least that's what the section above said. So I was like, well, I'll just wait. And...
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Sure.
Yes. Thank you.
Any thoughts, James? Okay, as we consider how best to equip the city of Inglewood to continue this process in the future, great. The Budget Advisory Committee recommends utilizing updated reporting document formatting, which we did reach that. Do we need to include an example of that? Or as an appendix, we should put that in there?
I do think it could make sense to include the format of the spreadsheet with the addition of the column and the restructuring as an appendix, sure.
Wonderful. Because I think it provides sort of a roadmap in the future when staff and or this committee obviously will be changed. Okay, utilize updating reporting document formatting, considering the opportunity to schedule future police and public works meetings to maximize the effectiveness of staff time and minimize the need for multiple presentations, which we are grateful that both departments came to speak to us twice this year. Wherever possible, the BAC asked for the labeling of data, such as percentage of full-time equivalent staff, to be formatted consistently and most clearly describe how the time is used. So I think we should, definitely provide the report. What were you gonna say?
Yeah,
Okay. Anything else that we should put here? Can we add the map of the road and bridge payments?
sure.
Yeah, okay.
And we can just call that out in the text. We see appendi 1 and 2 or whatever. I don't know if we'll have more in other sections.
Okay, great.
Peter, I just have one question involving word choice, and that's in line 3, where we talk about the 2 voter-approved sales and use tax areas that the BAC oversees. And I'm not sure that I would characterize us as overseeing those areas, probably reviewing or something that's a little bit different there. Because overseas, I think, would imply that we have authority to, I think, along the lines of city council or somebody to actually take action. And I think ours is more of a review and advisory role.
Sure. Let's just change that to reviews. I agree. I think that makes sense.
Great. Anything else on the sales and use tax that we should add?
I think it looks great.
What's that, James?
I said, I think it looks great. Thanks, Nevin, for dropping that in there.
I don't know why I don't get the. Okay, and I'll spend a little time on that too before it's all done.
Great.
Okay, reserve policy. So I just put in the overview that we had done last year, which I'll read and then I'll ask Steve to provide some comment. In August 22, Inglewood City Council adopted an amended reserve policy and a reserve and investment policy incorporating an unrestricted reserve range of 12% to 21.4%, which today we're at 16 and change by default. We're kind of splitting the middle, right?
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
And the basis for doing that, and also what did city council want to see in terms of our position on this?
So we originally came up with this reserve amount because it was a GFOA recommendation for 3 months of operating expenditures. That's the 16.7%. The philosophical question that I think is the largest one that looms on the horizon is, what is the purpose of reserves, and when is it okay or not okay to draw from reserves to fill in operating expenses? And I have my own opinion on that. It's changed over time, but it would be helpful from a committee standpoint to hear any advice or recommendation you have for us as to when we start breaking out the scissors and slicing line items off our budget, and when it's okay to draw from reserves for a year or two, draw down even potentially below that 12% range to ensure stability over the course of a few years of leaner times. And I guess I'll share my somewhat evolving opinion, is that the purpose of the reserves is to ensure continuity of government. So in past analysis I've done of lean years, we don't last more than 3 years at a time in a trend down as far as revenues are concerned. And that goes decades into the past, starting with the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, moving forward to the real estate bubble burst in 2008. We would see these sharp downward trends over the course of 3 years, and then a recovery would begin. And I've just done some napkin analysis in years past of what our reserves levels were at the time that those downturns occurred. The way the city solved that problem in the past was by cutting on capital, and we are harvesting that fruit today. So I guess the important question in front of the BAC is really, what is a reasonable philosophy when it comes to reserves? The council has not really landed on a definitive decision, but we've also not been asked to make a lot of difficult decisions in light of the reserves that we have. So next year's cycle is going to be a little more challenging, and there is potential there to draw below the 16.7% in the structure of our 2026 budget. That's where we're at.
And Rita, please chime in too, since you're a city council member. When we're considering the 2026 budget, which I'll be honest, I haven't looked at it or reviewed it, what do we believe is going to be extraneous or going to be stressing on that budget, and why do we need to necessarily consider that in this recommendation?
I'll lean on Kevin for this because he briefs us on a monthly basis, but projections going into next year are about 1.5 million, $2 million shortfall. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And that would be an operating shortfall. So we would be essentially paying staff and paying for programs with that $2 million out of the current unassigned fund balance, which is substantially larger than that. But it would drop us below the 16.7% for the first time in my recollection since, I don't know, probably 2014, 2015, 10 years at least.
At least, yeah.
So was the 16.7% still there even before the council in 2016? We had those policy decisions. So was it 16.7% even before that? Do you remember?
We looked back to 2015 and it's always been at that rate. But I believe going back farther than that, sometimes it was less. We didn't have that actual policy in place.
Right. We didn't have any policies in place, right? And that's why they did that in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the biggest impacts on this year and next year, is revenue flattening out in general economic conditions?
So I did look, I don't know if this is 23 or 24, but I did put together this, I call it tax revenue, government calls it revenue, just to see what our allocation was across funding for the general fund. And the vast majority of our funding comes from sales and use tax. Obviously, property tax, a popular topic that I'm very interested in. And then, here's kind of the other tax breakdown. Let's do this. So, whoops. Let me do that since it's calculated. So if we see revenue trending down, is that primarily driven by sales and use tax, Kevin, or is it coming from other things equally, or how might we consider that?
Primarily sales and use tax.
Okay.
Inglewood is very.
There are some state legislation that reduces the amount that property tax can grow. So we've seen substantial growth in property tax over the last 6 or 7 years. That's more regulated now.
Well, now we have the new statutory rule, which we'll see if administratively it gets done this year. I know there is a caveat there, which would delay it a year, but the property tax assessment ratio for at least the residential portion of assessed property will be caveated with whether the state revenue is at or equal to, or above or equal to 5%, or if it's below 5%. So that will impact some revenue there. Although, as you can see, Inglewood doesn't have a huge property tax reliance. Good or bad? Okay, so it's something to consider. I'll put that here. Read, anything else you'd like to add, or Sean, would you like to add anything?
Only that it will be helpful to have some guidance on this. We've never used the ratcheting and sliding, even though council approved it in 2022. And so this is the first year that we've even really thought about it in 5 years that I've been here of possibly needing to do that. So I think it'll be helpful, whatever kind of guidance you all can give.
I mean, there's only two levers that we can potentially pull, because we can't increase revenue. So we can decrease our expenses, or we can cover for those expenses using funds in the reserve. Those are the two levers that we have.
And I will say, for whatever it's worth to the committee, not to take us on a tangent, but we are cutting costs pretty significantly. Kevin and Tyson and I, and a group of directors who are on the budget review committee, are meeting. We've had 7 meetings so far and found hundreds of thousands of dollars where we're, mostly Tyson, is looking at line items that are historically underspent and saying, we're cutting these. When they have full authority to do that, and we're making those cuts. So we are working very hard to cut spending while also trying to maintain staff levels. So that's our goal, is to minimally use the reserve and keep staff, but cut a lot of other expenses. So.
And I see the Budget Advisory Committee's role, I just signed the paper over there, as being a relatively, I don't know what the right word is, budget conscious role. And so I think part of our guidance should be to say, hey, what is in reserve policy? When do we need it? What is the sort of conservative approach to how we manage our money in this case? What do we need a reserve for? Maybe we need to also explore that. What do we need a reserve for? And why is that important?
Actually, one thing before we ever talked about the policy, probably back in 2015 or early 2016, when I first got on, the reserve policy was the rainy day fund. And it was like 2 to 3 months worth of income, as 2 months. And so when there was a downturn or there was no money, that's what it was used for.
James, Jay, do you have any comments you'd like to share while we're on this?
I think we need to define downturn and rainy day. How rainy does the day get?
Right.
You know, I don't have the figures in front of me. I'm curious because I heard 1.5 million as far as what the operational shortfall as far as expectations. Like what would that do? Like how far down does that bring the percentage if like the reserve were to cover that? Like how much do we have left if that's what happens?
Well, unfortunately, I built this a year ago, so maybe that's something Kevin can provide us in the next couple of days so we can put it in here.
You know, because if this is the first time we're experiencing something like this and having to make this decision, then, you know, this is our baseline for right now to kind of judge things off of.
So previously, and again, this is old news, but it looks like we were in the 10 to 11 plus $1 million range at 16.7%. Does that sound fairly accurate to this group?
Yeah, that dollar figure changes over time because just in the 4.5 years I've been on council, our general fund has grown significantly by at least 30%. So we went from a roughly 55 million a year general fund to now in danger of pushing 80, somewhere in that 75 range. So when you calculate your reserves as a percentage of what the general fund is, that reserve grows in number numerically while the percentage either stays the same or may even shrink.
Well, and another thing happened in the last couple of years. We had enough unassigned fund balance money. We were increasing spending on capital projects. And so that, and I think in the past, we were probably using the unassigned fund balance for emergencies and just leaving it grow that high.
Kevin, thank you, Rita. Kevin, can you provide us the prior 5 years to date, what the general fund balance is, the general reserve amount based on the various calculations, I guess 21.4, 16.7, and I believe 12% at the bottom, and then the unassigned fund balance for that term as well. Thank you, sir.
Those numbers are going to be fresh because we just put out the act for.
Perfect. Great. And can you please provide the acronym?
Annual Comprehensive Financial Report.
Formerly, if you know that term.
I love these terms. Please tell me what that one means.
It's the same thing, just different, one letter than. Yeah, and Kevin can give more updated, but we did update staff, all staff last week on a call with almost 200 employees on it about the financial situation and the steps we were taking. At that time, before we started really getting into the budget cuts, had we funded no of the enhancement requests, so new staff, new increases to programs, you know, if cost increases just from inflation, at that time we were sitting at about 13%, drawing down the reserves down to 13%.
Okay.
We have since kept chopping and chopping. And we also have, you know, there's our permits department historically has been undershooting revenue, and we always exceed revenue, so we've got that right sized with what they're getting. So that's helped a little bit. So we can do some things on revenue because we don't want to underestimate revenue because that hurts the budget overall.
Sure.
So
and real quick for clarification, when you say right sizing, does that mean we're actually billing out everything that's going on, or we're raising fees?
no. I mean, there are some departments that are doing some kind of inflationary increases on those, but we are really focused on the reductions. So it's really line items that we are looking at that are historically underspent. What are some other examples, Tyson, of where we found money, in the budget? Well, for instance, we're gonna reduce the internship program. That's in some ways a nice to have. We're gonna reduce that from 13 to 9 interns, which will still cover the general fund departments, but nobody's gonna have 2 interns, for instance. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and we've been looking at revenue and looking at, 5-year averages, historical averages to see, how much do we actually pull in versus what we're budgeting for, so we can, I think that's what Sean means by right sizing, so we can actually make sure we're budgeting for what we actually expect to receive. We've also looked at, additional revenue sources like sponsorships and things like that, opportunities there. And then looking at, other sources of revenue, and we basically just go line by line and on all of them to see, is this a place where maybe we return $25,000 every year so we can cut by $25,000 because we're not expected to spend that.
So are the expenses truly year over year going to go down, or are they going to be flat, or are they still up despite budget cuts?
Still up.
And then that's driven by economic impacts or the cost it takes for us to pave a road, or what?
We can't get rid of inflation.
Understand.
It's in almost everything that we spend money on.
Mm-hmm.
Salaries, supplies, goods,
Sure.
professional services.
So what is the percentage of the budget to cover salaries? That's grown quite a bit in the last few years, has it not?
The general fund, I think overall it varies between department. Like finance, we're about 90% personnel costs. We don't do much anything other than provide services.
People and pencils.
Yeah.
And calculators, maybe. Excel sheets.
I encourage computers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, but it's 65 to 70% for the general fund is personnel costs.
And so that's the highest cost.
Yes.
I mean, makes sense. I mean, that's pretty standard in the business world, at least, that payroll is the biggest number.
And that includes healthcare. It really goes down.
Okay.
Here's the page from our May financial report that Member Ward mentioned that we do monthly. You can see there, this line here is total fund balance, going across. This is operating. We've had operating surpluses up until last year. Slight operating deficit this year. This line here is what the city council has been able to divert into capital projects. So it's been a very significant amount.
Okay, so we can get a copy of this then, so we
Sure.
can just reference it for our report.
And it's on the webpage too.
Okay, so you're holding this unrestricted reserve at 16.7%, even though we bent down to 13.
No, I'm just saying, if we put the budget in front of council right now, without any of the cutting we're doing, without funding any enhancements to any budgets, we're looking at a 13% reserve down, as opposed to the 16.7 So we're going through a process of trying to cut hundreds of thousands and right-size revenue estimates that departments, some of them have historically not been budgeting what they actually are bringing in year over year.
Okay, got it.
So that's kind of the right sizing that I'm talking about.
And the problem we're seeing, let's just say in the economy or pressures in the economy, is hurting primarily our biggest line item called sales and use tax revenue.
It's just flat.
Got it.
And yet, we're seeing.
And costs are up.
Costs are up. Health insurance is $212,000 up this year, and we were lucky to get that. That's about that ended up being a 7.5% increase. Dental insurance, we've been estimating 5.7. We got some good news today that might actually be a little bit less. And then we're trying to maintain a 1% salary increase across the board to just maintain with inflation. We're not keeping up with inflation at 1% increase, but we're And we've got our unions at 1%, which is really good. So we're trying to do that across the board. But altogether, that means about a 3.1% increase in cost with all inflationary and all, in the 1% across the board. And so what we're trying to do is get the costs down where we are taking the very bare minimum from the 16.7 target reserve amount. But it remains to be seen whether we can get there, but we're working really hard on it.
So is city council gonna make the decision on where to go within the range? Or we say we're staying at just all things ceteris paribus before anything else happens? Are we saying, no, the city should stay at 16.7, we're gonna reduce our capital project funding?
That's gonna be a
Or
difficult
there's something
discussion.
else?
It is.
Okay.
And there are 7 of us, so 4 of us have to agree on what the strategy is, and that's what we're gonna do. So,
Okay, so this is an important input, or at least it will be read and considered.
at the very least, it will
Yes.
advise what we do in 2026 if conditions don't change significantly, or if they do. But you can see, when you look at this chart, what I was talking about, the orange at the bottom is basically the money that we have to play around with. We meet all of our policies, and we have this much money left that we can spend or keep and still maintain within our policy limits. And over the course of the last 3 years, that orange has been shrinking, even as we've made significant investments in capital. But this next year, the orange will be gone and the green may shrink.
Is that a rainy day?
It's arguably sprinkling.
Yeah, and I'm not making jest. I mean, I knew you'd have something good to say, but, right, okay, so, I mean, yeah, it's time and it may need some adjustment.
Yeah.
So 13%, so 12% is sort of the floor right now, right?
Right.
And if we hit that 12%, then, I mean, capital gets cut, capital funding gets cut. Is that right? Is that how it works right now?
That is a decision of city council. Staff will not be recommending that.
Okay.
We want to keep our foot on the gas, I do, to keep building things, keep improving things, and not let our infrastructure fail like we did the last 30 years. So if it's maybe nice to have, yeah, it might be getting cut back, but we're gonna try to not cut into our capital budgets and instead try to reduce our operating budgets.
And there's a lot of capital that we can't cut legally.
Right.
We're not gonna be cutting capital in the parks because the voters just approved master bond for capital in the parks. We're not gonna be cutting a ton of capital on roads because the voters just approved a tax increase for roads. So that leaves things like public facilities, vehicles, things that don't need to be replaced any less, but sometimes can be stretched another year. And it's really not fun doing that. It doesn't result in positive outcomes.
Of course, we're about ready to mortgage one of our buildings, so
How much cash would that provide?
mine either, huh?
How much cash would that provide?
Well, it's a funding mechanism called certificates of participation, where we put a building up as collateral in order to get a bunch of building improvements done that are energy related.
So it wouldn't be a cash out refinance, it'd be more of a
It's
debt
an
type,
equipment.
a loan obligation.
About $6 million to do things like HVAC.
Which is about 8% of our gross revenue. 7%.
If you're looking at it from the general fund.
Oh, okay.
It comes across from different, that includes other enterprise funds too, I mean, that
It,
are,
that's, yeah, includes almost all the city buildings. That's one of the water park buildings, the golf course, things like that.
which have also been neglected from a maintenance and facilities perspective.
So is there any other funding mechanism aside from the reserve
Debt?
that we could tap if, a rainy day?
Debt,
Debt,
grants.
debt in the market, grants,
Raise taxes.
raise taxes, which, Steve mentioned.
Some limited fee wiggle room, but not a ton. Yeah. This is one that committees past have noodled on for quite some time and not come to a lot of better answers than council did, frankly.
And the other thing I should mention, the 13% that I mentioned was again without funding any enhancements. Council has already directed staff, fund a cybersecurity engineer. So we gotta throw that, we've gotta throw a few things in there from the enhancements list. But again, we're working to find offsets in the operating budgets. And so far we're being, I think, fairly more successful than we've ever been before with our budget review committee, so.
Thank you all for that. So I think with that, when do we have this report?
So I will need to upload it by Friday end of day.
This
So,
week.
Yes. So before that would
Okay.
be fantastic, so I had time to do that.
Any comments from those online before we move to the CIP budget section?
Sure, I just have a point of clarification. So let's say that the reserve levels do drop down to 13%. I think most people who are looking at current economic conditions, and I think Councilman Ward said that in his experience, there's not been longer than a 3-year cycle. But I certainly don't think right now most economic indicators are pointing to the fact that we're even in a recession. Of course, you don't know that until a couple quarters later. But I'm just concerned, and maybe I'm misunderstanding something, if the reserves drop down to that 13%, will that essentially kick the can down the road next year if conditions are worse than this year?
Yes.
Yeah, if I was on council, I'd be asking staff, how do we fix this next year? I mean, what's the plan for next year if we see an actual decline? Because we do have an increase in revenue, but it's not keeping up with inflation. It's so minor. What is it? We've increased it a little bit, 1.7%?
About 1.7, which is half of what inflation is, half of what.
And that
expenditure.
Yeah.
1.7 specifically being,
Total general fund revenue increase. It's in several line items.
and what's the expense increase been?
Right now, what are we?
Roughly.
3.5.
Okay, so yeah, I
We're
mean,
still
it's,
going through that process.
and for 25 year to date. And it might be on that screen you showed, we can look at it.
Well, that's the other thing that I didn't mention. We are trying to give council a cushion at the end of this fiscal year by underspending so that we have a little bit of that unassigned fund balance to draw from before we do the reserves.
So-
So I've asked all departments, start reducing expenses so that we can build a cushion at the end of this fiscal year.
So $1 million, 2, 3.
I don't think,
Like you're up to this.
I don't think it'll be quite that high, but we're hoping for $500,000 or above.
Okay, but it's,
Our initial projection was none. So.
No, that's great.
We've made progress.
all right. A lot of tough questions, I know. Thank you. Okay, capital improvement
I
budget.
have the memo for that.
Can you show that, please, Tyson? Thank you so much. That'll help us recollect, and I was out of the country for that meeting, so.
Thank you, Tyson.
Yeah, sorry, give me just a second.
No, you're. While we're waiting for that, can we just add an S to the end of works next to Deputy City Manager Dodd? So it says who works hard as opposed to who work. Oh,
I'm sure
wait.
There's good.
City Manager Lewis and Deputy City Manager Dodd.
Oh, no, it's
No, work is fine. Delete this, I'm sorry.
no comment.
I'm sure there's gonna be some grammatical corrections.
I think it's a punctuation issue that made, yeah.
And-
So we should really be deleting the comma instead of adding an S. Thank you. Sorry.
And I'm ready to share.
Great, okay, sorry. Okay, well, I got it.
So I think in terms of the process question that was brought up, or looking at the tool, it's that second section.
This one?
Yeah. So those were from my notes from that May meeting.
Yeah, so what do you mean by, what do we intend by the current iteration lends itself to small value judgments? I feel like that was where there was quote unquote a small budgetary requirement or request, but it still got the same weighting as big dollar items, just given how the scores were applied. Is that correct?
I think it's not necessarily value judgments as in the value of the project. It's value judgments as in what do the board members see value in? As opposed to, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, if I recall correctly, I think Jay had weighed in on, because I remember when I took notes, I was noting kind of who was making the comments so I could recall things. Sorry to put you on the spot, Jay, but I seem to recall that.
No, I'm very sorry. I ran off to grab some water, so I didn't hear that lead up.
We were reading the top bullet point that just said, basically in its current iteration, as we rate these funding requests or capital improvement projects.
Oh, yes.
It lends itself to small value judgments. I just wanted to clarify what we meant by that.
Yeah, it was just that most decisions seemed as if like any reasonable person who was looking at this and considering like what the city's needs were would likely kind of all come to a conclusion just very similar. So the tool was just like I think I referred to it as, it felt a very mechanical Turkish, where you're just kind of filling in the numbers that are already going to be there in the first place. So that was how I felt it went.
Now I want an example.
So like, because of the way that the form has us rank different categories, right? It is going to lend itself toward ranking safety related projects higher naturally because of the format of the form. So I think what had been expressed in that meeting was, because of that, we're essentially taking staff input and the format of the form, and there really shouldn't be much variation between different members of this committee in how they vote, because the form itself will lend itself to certain types of projects being prioritized. And so I think the concern that Jay was expressing was that we don't have a lot of input. And I think there was a consideration of what kind of input should we have? Is there value in it prioritizing those types of projects or not? Like, I think there is a lot of value in prioritizing safety projects, right? But
Naturally, right.
But I think there was some consideration of, to what extent should we have input that the format is not currently allowing for?
Thank you. Yeah. Much more succinct.
I'm also totally fine with us not including these considerations in our report. I just wanted to.
Say that, just so I understand.
Yeah, in the CIP section, we certainly don't have to refer to this part of our discussion. You know, if we're not ready to make, you know, a recommendation based off of it, and it's just food for thought, and we want to come back to it next year and decide, you know, maybe it is worth making a change to this form in the future, but we're just not there yet, and we don't know what changes we'd want to recommend. Like, if we don't know what we want to say to council, I'm fine leaving it out, and we can come back to it later.
Can I throw something in here? Because I remember this conversation when you all were looking at that tool, and it seemed like the 1% of public art, the 1% of the budget was clear down at the bottom of the list, and wayfinding and placemaking was also way down at the bottom of the list. And that same thing happened a year ago. But those two things got moved up to the top, and those really were not safety issues. I mean, in my opinion. So I don't know if that plays into this at all.
No, that's helpful.
No, I think it does, and I think some of the criteria on which we select does lend itself to safety. Now, when you say those got moved to the top, Rita, like, we chose those near the top this round, I just don't remember, and I'm gonna have to go back.
I think that Planning and Zoning and the Budget Advisory Committee did not choose those near the top either time.
I think that is correct. Yes, but they're up there.
Right.
So maybe we don't need this committee. But I mean, but that's real, that's a real input, so we need to think about how we wanna.
The scores are averaged, I'll just say. So yes, one group can do low and one high, and anyway, so.
And we're not the only ones opining.
Right, yeah, there are four boards and commissions, and then,
Okay.
yeah, staff.
But we were responsible for creating kind of how the mapping goes and the selection process goes, right? From two years ago, 3 years ago. Heck, I might have been the only one here 3 years ago, James.
My understanding is that, like, we were given the format and given input on the format. That's what I understand from rewatching old videos. So it wasn't like this committee created the Excel sheet. It's like the Excel sheet was created, I believe, by the finance team.
That's correct.
And then our predecessors looked at that and said, asked a bunch of questions. I don't know how substantial the tweaks were. I'd have to check because I watched it last year sometime, but yeah.
I don't recall.
Go ahead, James.
I was going to say, I don't recall substantial modifications to the form over the last few years. I feel like there's been, frankly, more conversation about the tool that we use to review the sales and use tax, frankly.
Agreed. Okay, so I think we should include that in the report, whether we take a position on it or not. But it should be identified. And the propensity that sort of quote unquote the safety measures always seem to rise to the top, or at least tend to be at the top, is not an illegitimate issue, but it does lend itself to being chosen first. And I admit it, when I'm going through the sheet, I'm ranking those near the top. I mean, not to say that they shouldn't get funded, but I think it's something we need to include. So I'll help with that, and whoever else is on that one. Okay, so the committee plans on taking a more comprehensive review of the tool and offer recommended changes, okay, prior to 2026, which we just did 25 or 26. Did we just do 25 or 26?
This was 25.
20,
You just reviewed the 2026.
25, 26. We're just
2026.
26. Okay.
Fine, thank you.
Indication of whether a proposed project has remained on a list of projects for multiple years, which I think is the case. So why is that the case? And if a project's on there for 2, 3, 4 years and never gets funded, then is it a priority? An indication of whether a portion of the proposed project is in progress or has been completed in the proposed project represents a subsequent phase needed to complete the overall project. I think that's legitimate as well. And I think we should provide examples of those if that's acceptable to council and city manager.
You guys have carte blanche.
Right.
Your
Have
job
what?
is carte blanche. Your job, you're tasked with reporting to council what you think is important. So we do not get offended by your recommendations.
Right.
Okay.
And if we do, we just ignore them, so.
Well, I'm not good at that.
I recommend you.
Third, an indication of the cost of proposed projects within the context of the overall funds available for capital improvement projects in a particular year. What was meant by that, James, if you don't mind?
I seem to recall, and hopefully someone else can recall better than me, but just that there was discussion about, excuse me, what's the overall fund balance available? And I believe that information is obviously available, but I think so that it was easier to read within the context of what we were looking at on that list.
Right, so we could say if it's $1 million project, what was the allocation over the total spend available? Because that would, to me, interpolate how we would rank projects. Like the Union Bridge has been a big topic, and there's other ones that I just think of. But if we need to spend $2 million to get the bridge done, then it probably should be ranked higher just based on its gross value. That would be an example I can think of. Is that reasonable, Evan, in your memory, or others?
I think that is an approach that we certainly could take. You know, I think there's some potential drawbacks to that approach as well. I don't know that I'd necessarily recommend that approach, but I think it's a consideration.
Okay, a methodology for giving equitable consideration to less visible departments, i.e. communications. I think that's a great example. I know they've had some things on there that have not, more or less, I could say, have been popular or widely selected, but that nevertheless are important. So we should provide that communication example, and I'll help whoever's writing this. A methodology for reviewing the top priority project individually by department versus a part of a consolidated list for all city departments. So what I'm understanding when I read that is that, James, correct me where I'm wrong or others, that basically, like, here's this department's 5 or 6 funding requests. Like, what allocation of dollars should they get versus like what we can approve for them? So maybe we only approve 2 projects for a department, even though they want 6, and instead of spreading the money across 5 or 6 projects. Is that an example or not?
So like when we get the list of staff recommendations, it's like, it's not compiled. It's just like, I guess it is compiled among all the staff. We don't have departments, like this department recommends this project, this department recommends this project. We have cumulatively all of the staff recommend these projects, right? And so we don't have like a specific rankings by department.
So does the city, Sean, for instance, do you say, oh, your department only gets 10% of the total fund, or do we have a way to split out like how much a department could actually take or have funded, I should say?
We don't have a department separate weighting on it.
Can I ask a question? It seems like, and I don't know where I heard this, it probably was in budget discussions, doesn't the communications department, they're divided up between all departments, correct? I mean, how does that work? Because they work for all the departments in the city, so does their budget get charged out of some of the other budgets?
I'll give the layman's answer and then the professionals can respond. But yeah, any general fund department that does work for an enterprise fund is going to be reimbursed for that work. So, if they're doing a flyer promotion for golf, the golf fund needs to reimburse communications for that work and for any printing costs, et cetera. The same with the water fund, the sewer fund, South Platte Renew. So yeah, we really, and I think in the last few years, we have gotten better and better at appropriately charging. One example today, we found out that Stormwater was going to give parks $12,000 to maintain a year to maintain the new dozen-acre stormwater detention pond. Well, it takes two people, like 2 days to get that maintained, every other week or sometimes, twice a week, depending on rain conditions. So that's totally inadequate. So we're really trying to make sure that, we're not violating the law and having the enterprise fund subsidized by work and, work product in the general fund.
So that makes sense to me, I understand that, but what about the other departments that are not enterprise funds?
They're solely funded by sales to all of our.
Yeah, within the general fund, we're all funded by the same amount of money. The same sales tax supports communications, city manager, finance, HR, IT.
So, but because communications works for each one of those departments, do they ask for that money in their budget, or does it go to each department and then that money is taken out of the department and given to communications?
No, they ask for it in their department-specific budget. We don't charge internally in the general fund. It's just, it's just extra work. When we can do it through the budget process and allocate them so much for how many employees they need or whatever.
Okay, so the only reason I asked that question is communications less visible, or not necessarily, because all the departments are using them.
Well, there's a little bit of a different conversation because this is about capital.
Okay.
So they can request capital out of our capital projects budget and not necessarily out of their general fund budget.
Okay.
So it's a different pot of money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
They probably are less visible because they don't have as many capital projects as, say, public works, obviously.
Makes sense.
They're not maintaining the streets. And
Some of
bridges.
the place naming signs and stuff like that have
Okay.
made their way to capital
Right.
requests.
Okay. Thank you.
And can I just note that when I was taking down this information, I took it down as it was suggested in list form during our conversation. So these were not necessarily recommendations that the BAC had found consensus around. It was simply a list, and the communications department was thrown out as a possible example of a less visible department. I think that last comment there about top priority project individually by department is tied to this idea of departments that may be less visible, so that the BAC doesn't just kind of look at the top list and or top of list that have the rankings that put them up there, and that actually take the time to look at, like, what is IT asking for, or the city clerk or something like that.
That makes sense.
And I appreciate you putting these notes together. I think you did a great job. More just recognizing that they're not explicitly recommendations, but that the report that we are working on potentially may include recommendations. I wanted to get some clarity about what we feel strongly about, what was just like brainstorming or food for thought, and what we want our narrative to city council to be.
Great. So I think this should be part of what we write in here. And also, has the capital improvement project budget been finalized?
It's a piece of the overall budget that we're right in the middle of.
So is it worth us asking for where it is now so we can reference that in the report? Or should we just go based on what we recommended and use that for our basis?
Yeah, I don't think it would be enough of a final product to be
Okay.
using the 2026.
Okay, so I will stick to just
The
our,
process from last year is what you're reviewing, and I mean, we haven't changed the process yet this year, so if you have recommendations, that's, I think, what counts.
got it, okay. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Okay, so we should look at that when we're writing this, and I'll help, looks like Nevin, James, Laura's sick, I know, so I don't know how active she'll be this week. Okay, and the other thing, I think, just one thing I had on my mind was, you know, we had this new Parks and Rec bond that got approved, but then there were Park and Rec requests within the CIP budget. And so I think that was one concern that we might have as well. And I think a couple of them were $700,000. So I think that was part of our concern is, was that expected, or were they ancillary and we didn't think those were going to be coming, or was there some other reason that they weren't anticipated? So we may put that in the report, and it's more of a question, I think, at this point. So. Okay, well, I'm tired. Member's choice. Andrew, you're welcome to also request anything.
Just soaking it in, you know, trying to figure out what I do.
You're expected to give commentary at the end of every meeting.
I can do that.
Closing act.
I know, Andy, so I can.
Oh,
You should wait till next time to follow up.
Okay, next time.
James has his hand raised as well.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to speak over people. There's always a little bit of a delay when you're remote. I just wanted to point out, and I'm sorry I don't know if this qualifies as member's choice, but on the recognition section of the draft as it currently stands, I literally just pulled that from last year's report. So this has always been a section where every single member of the BAC is invited to go in and put their kudos if they'd like to. So just wanted to make it clear about that. But wanted to get that section started because that has been a traditional section of our report.
Thank you for doing that, James.
Thanks, James. I've added that note here. Please, all members, comment here. So that may mean no comment, but thanks, James. It's great. Anything else for member's choice?
Just another flag. I know Tyson added it to the email chain, but to be careful about replying all to the committee members, so we steer clear of sunshine laws.
So yeah, I did actually. That was one thing I meant to start with. Can you just briefly clarify? I mean, to me, if we're all working on this, you know, there's going to be some cross involvement. But the problem we run into, and correct me where I'm wrong, is if we have this email thread going, technically that has to be documented as a meeting.
Yes, I believe it's, the way it's been explained to me is it's any form of discussion where, anything that could lead to decision-making or discussion of the committee. And so that's why we tend to have folks just email me and then I can send it out to everyone versus emailing the whole group, because that leads to discussion that would need to be in a meeting law.
Okay, so bombard Tyson with any updates, and I will work on this tomorrow. So I would just, if you all please can work on this before the end of the day Thursday, and then let Tyson know when you're complete, and I'm gonna proofread everything, and then we'll decide who wants to come to the city council meeting.
And that'll be August 4th.
August the 4th.
And I'll send out an email reminder as well for that.
Wonderful. Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council members, thank you. Yeah, no, thanks.